Yeah, if you don't want to be on camera, then just turn your camera off.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, yeah, so assertiveness. So some assessors and trainers, either in the classroom or when out with employers and learners, sometimes struggle with assertiveness. So we've created, again, a bespoke session around how to be more assertive. And it really helps. It's something that helped me when I was an assessor, in order to, because everyone's got an excuse for why they can't do work or why they can't release staff. And it's just in how to phrase those things in order to put over in a non-aggressive way, about how you can get what you want, basically. It also helps in your personal life as well. We also do online learning. So we have 3 online learning sessions. So these are ones where you log on and complete in your own time. So it's how to give feedback for development, which we've had great feedback from those who've taken part. I know Karen, who's on here, has done it. And we use a model called Medals and Missions, and it's actually Roz who's delivering it, and she talks through how to do that. How to agree educational goals and targets. So yeah, that's another one, specifically looking at target setting, planning, and how you can set short-term goals and long-term targets with your learners, the differences between both. And the one we're releasing in the hopefully next month or so, is mastering learner relationships. So it's all about how you can build those learner relationships to help you and help them progress in their learning. Everything we do to support you encourages you to support your learners. I mean, we set it because we want to see vocational excellence. We want to have that parity of esteem between vocational and academic. So everything that we do helps you as a practitioner to help your learners. We also then do the qualifications. This is, I suppose, bread and butter, assessors, IQA, and we also recently started the lead IQA qualification. The award in education and training, which is your level 3 sort of entry qualification. The certificate in learning and development is a lovely qualification that not a lot of people know about in our industry. It's actually funded via an apprenticeship programme, and it combines the assessor qualification and the award in education and training. So if you're an assessor who's now finding you need to do more teaching in your role, or if you're a trainer who's finding you need to do assessment, it's a perfect qualification. And if you're new into the role within the last 12 months, it's fully funded as part of an apprenticeship programme. And the new one we have, which we're launching next month, which we're delivering with a couple of training providers, is the award in learning coaching. So this is specifically for people working in Jobs Growth Wales Plus or traineeship programmes, what used to be traineeship programmes, or young adult learners, is how to coach those learners to succeed and progress really onto their next opportunity. Some other things that we do that you may be interested in. We produce regular blogs on our website. So there's an example there. We've got using hooks in your training sessions. So we try and keep them as relevant as possible to everybody in the training and assessment industry. We have our Panda Education and Training Network, where we try and have conversations around training and assessment and practice. It's something that we want to try and build on and have people in there who feel that they're able to ask questions of the network on things they may be a little bit stuck with. So sometimes I think recently we've had a discussion on there about how to adapt presentations in Wales, particularly because we have to make sure that they're accessible for people and that they're bilingual for anyone who's Welsh Government funded. So there was a nice discussion going on about how people can do both those things and keep their presentations looking nice. We have discussions in there earlier on in the health and social care qualification. People were asking about how different people are running that. And we share then anything that we've got coming up and put on there any other CPD that we hear about or any other resources that we come across in our research. And then we also have free resources as well. So if you sign up to our newsletter, you get access to our free resources. So there's an example there of a group discussion checklist that trainers can use. But we'll give you information later on about how you can sign up to our newsletter to get those. Okay, so on to today. We've got 3 short workshops for you today. Now we try to keep them short. We know time is a premium in our industry, and try and give across as much information as we can in those short workshops. So we have Roz, who's she's the P in Panda. No, is she? She's the P in
Yes,
Panda.
I am. Thank you.
So something I didn't explain is for those who don't know, Panda is it means Prothero and Arnold. So that's Ros Prothero, Rachel Arnold, P and A, and it forms Panda, and that's how we got our name. And then weirdly, when we were both little growing up, our security toy of choice was both a panda, so it was very relevant to both of us. So Ros is starting off with 20 minutes on AI, which I can't wait to hear about because she's had great fun in researching this. Then over to Anne, who's going to talk around inclusive teaching and learning, specifically around the UDL model. So UDL is Universal Design for Learning, and talking around the principles of that. And lastly, we have the lovely Jamie Farr from Your North, who's our Associate Trainer for Mental Health and Wellbeing. So Jamie's going to do 20 minutes on wellbeing for educators, specifically around stress management, because it's something in our industry we all come across. So it's hopefully going to be useful for all of us. So thank you very much for joining us again, and over to Roz.
Thank you very much, Rachel. The reason I sighed, I exhaled there when you said I've been having fun with AI. I can honestly say I have had fun. But my goodness, I've gone down an AI wormhole over the past few weeks. And 20 minutes isn't going to even touch the size, but hopefully we can sort of give you a little insight into how it can work for us. The very first thing I want to do is to get you all to just tell me a little bit about how you feel about AI. Some of you may know it and have used it. Some of you may not have a clue, okay? But what I would like you to do, if you've got a phone or a device available, you can go to menti.com. So that's menti.com, menti.com, and use the code that's on the screen at the top. So that's 1524 9543. And just give me one word to describe how you feel about AI. What does it mean to you? And I think it may show us a few things. Excellent. I'm glad. Excited. I'm glad. I'm excited too. Yeah, that's fine. I know it's new to a lot of people. Yeah, unknown. It is the unknown. Yeah, brilliant. Bamboozled is pretty much me at the moment. Scary. Yeah. Scary and wary. Scared. See, apprehensive. Yeah, I understand that. Absolutely.
Sorry, Roz. Where's the code? I can't find the code. I can't see the code.
Oh, no problem. It's at the top of the screen if you can see that, but it's 1524 and then 9543.
Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of you are saying new to you, complete novice, and there's unsure and scared. And I think a few people, so the bigger the word, by the way, this is the word cloud, the bigger the word, the more people are using those words. So unsure's coming through, as is excited. And it's really good to see this, because to us, I think AI is pretty new. However, AI's been around for about 70 years since, well, my maths is a bit wrong there, but since the 50s, okay? We interact with it or have interacted with it quite a lot. But I think what's new to us recently is chatbots. Okay, so things like ChatGPT, Google Bard, etc. So I want to take you through a few things today. Thanks for doing that, because it's really good to see that some of you are excited. Yeah, some of you are worried, but we're going to explore it a little bit. So let's start. Now, for today's presentation and everything I've done for today, I've used AI. Okay, I've used AI to help me. And I've created this presentation by using AI, okay, artificial intelligence. So I'm going to present this and take you through. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to present a few slides, give you a bit of info, and then I'm going to give you a demo to show you what it can do. Okay, but I think when I mention AI to people, and a lot of people have said, you know, this week, oh, I can't wait for your session on AI, Ros, because we've got to sort out this. Because usually when you mention AI, people like us, trainers and assessors, they think of plagiarism. Absolutely right. Okay, I think it is something that we all need to be aware of. I think we're all a little bit scared of, this is another tool that our learners can use to give us work. How are we going to spot it? My presentation today isn't going to focus on this, but I just wanted to mention it because I know a lot of you are a little bit worried about it, perhaps. Can we prevent it? I'm not sure we can prevent it, because it's, as you'll see, there's a lot of tools out there that can be used by everybody. Can we spot it? There are now tools available, and I'll go through a couple in a minute of the different tools that are available that can help us detect it. After today's session, I'm going to be sending out a Padlet with some links, and on that Padlet, I'm going to put this, which is the JCQ guidance for teachers and assessors on how to protect the integrity of qualifications. It's a little bit heavy, not going to lie, but it's got some really good advice in there. If you find it too heavy, I'll show you a way later on how to make it, how to summarize it using AI. Why not? But that will be available for everybody, just to show you the advice that's coming out in our industry of how to cope with it. For some reason, I seem to have missed. Hang on a minute. There. This is what I want. So there are things out there at the moment. Look, we're sort of at the beginning of this journey into learners giving us work using AI chatbots. A lot of the online plagiarism detectors are saying that they have put things in to recognize it. It's at the beginning, okay, and I think it's going to get better. These are look, there's lots and lots of tools out there if you search, but I always look at things that are free, okay, for you guys to use. So these are 3 free ones that you can use: CopyLeaks, GPT-0, and Zero GPT. Honestly, I've tried all 3 of these. I have found CopyLeaks to be the most accurate. Okay, so what I did with that, I generated some AI content, put it into CopyLeaks, and it said, yeah, this is 100% AI generated. GPT-0, Zero GPT, they picked up about 50% of it. Look, these new detectors aren't going to give you the sources. They're not going to say, oh, they got it from here or they got it from there. They're just going to tell you that they think it's been generated by AI. Okay, and that's just to give you a clue to then go and question your learner and make sure that they know that stuff themselves. So look, enough of plagiarism for now, because I want to get into the world of how can it help us? And it can help us to a certain degree. So I think looking at it and the conversations I'm having with assessors, tutors, teachers, trainers, is it's all around productivity. We're all really, you know, we all know we've got a lot of work to do and it's hard to fit it into a day. So how can AI help us with our productivity and to sort of maybe take the pressure off a little bit? So I'm going to show you a few ways today. As I said, 20 minutes is scratching the surface. I could spend pretty much a week showing you all the things that are out there that can help us. But I'm just going to show you a couple of ideas, not to scare you, but just to show you what is capable now. And I can only say it's going to get better. I mean, even in a year, I think it's going to be a completely different landscape. So I want to introduce you to the term, because as I said, AI in general has been around for years and years and years. We're talking today about generative AI. What's that? Well, it's sort of when we have a conversation, okay? We have a human conversation with AI in order to get ideas, maybe create content. And I'm going to look at some specific tools. Now, most of you may have heard of ChatGPT. I think that is the thing that has kicked this all off over the last year or so, because ChatGPT came into our vocabulary in about November last year. What is it? Well, it's a human conversation simulation tool. It's a chatbot. Okay, now we've all maybe, I mean, I know I have had chatbots. You know, when you try and buy something online, it's like, it looks like you need help today, and you think, oh, go away. You want to get rid of it. But this one, ChatGPT, there are others available, such as Google Bard. Microsoft have got their version now through Bing. But ChatGPT, I'm going to concentrate on today because I think that's the one that most people know. It's basically got a database of stuff. You ask it a question, specific question, and it'll come back with what it knows from its database of stuff. That's pretty much what we do as humans. We look into our experience in our brain. Okay, you've asked me a question. What do I know about that? Here's my opinion. Here's my ideas. Pretty much that. But remember, it's programmed. It's programmed by humans. It's trained. The one that we're using at the moment, okay, ChatGPT version 3.5. And by the way, guys, I'll give you all the links to sort of, you know, sign up for ChatGPT and everything after today's session. It's trained with 300 billion words. That sounds like quite a lot, right? But something that you should know is that ChatGPT is only trained up to 2021 so far. So if you're expecting to get bang up to date information, it might not be able to do that for you yet. ChatGPT version 4 is coming soon, and it's said to have 500 times as much information as the one we're using now. So that's, I can't do the math on that. 500 times 300 billion words is quite a lot, right? So look, it's getting bigger, it's getting stronger. Do we put our heads in the sand or do we embrace it? I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to see how we can use it for us. So remember, we are still in charge. We're the humans in here. The output that you get, so for example, in ChatGPT, you will ask it a question, okay? So you might ask it, well, what does AI mean? Explain to me what AI means, and it will tell you. But it will only give you an output that is as good as the question that you give it. I think a lot of people have said, oh, well, I've tried ChatGPT and it didn't give me the right information, so I'm not using it anymore. The key word here is chat, okay? It's conversational. So if it doesn't give you the right thing the first time, you can ask it again. You can change your wording. You can say, okay, explain a little bit more about this, or no, tell me more about that. And it will go back and it will regenerate its answer. There's a sort of rule of thumb going around the AI universe at the moment that, you know, especially as teachers, okay, you can't take its words to be absolutely accurate. So use the 80-20 principle. It can do 80% of the work for you, but we're the humans. We've got to then check it's accurate, check it's not biased, and put our input in as well. So it can really help us and save time, but we have the overall final say, and we do need to have that input to make sure it is accurate. Really good quote that I found from somebody called Dan Fitzpatrick, and he's called the AI educator. I'll give you a link to his website because it's really good. Outsource the doing, not the thinking. And I think that's really what I want to show you today. It's about outsourcing the legwork, if you like, but you still have to input the intelligent bit, the thinking bit. So I give you some examples. ChatGPT we're going to look at. We're going to look at Canva. Now, some of you may have used Canva already. It's a graphic design tool. You can make presentations. You can do logos, Word documents. It's a great little tool. We're going to look at the free version, but also Magic School AI. Okay, now look, I've got it down to 3 tools. There are literally hundreds out there, not just the chatbot, but apps that have been created with chatbots in the background for certain industries. And there's a lot out there for trainers and teachers and educators. Okay, I've narrowed it down to 3 to make it simple because we've only got 20 minutes and I've probably only got about 10 minutes left. So we're going to concentrate on 3 today. Look, there are drawbacks, of course, okay? Are the machines taken over? Not yet. But can they help us in a collaborative way? Possibly. We've got to keep an eye on that, though. Data privacy and security is a big worry for a lot of people. Whatever tool that you use, check their privacy policy, check what they're doing with your data. Remember, it's only as good as the input. Okay, it is a machine. Whatever you input, it can be biased. Okay, so it can learn certain ways from us and propagate bias. So yeah, all things that we need to be aware of whilst we're using it. It is here to stay, and I want to show you how we can embrace it in our world, okay, as educators. So without further ado, let's get going. By the way, that presentation I used an app called Gamma. Okay, so Gamma, again, links will be on the Padlet afterwards, creates a presentation for me. It did 80% of the work. I got the structure, I got the graphics, the images, the text and the content, and I just tweaked it a little bit, put a couple of my own things in there, but it saved me a lot of work. We're going to start off with ChatGPT. Now, if you're thinking, well, where do I start? Okay, you can start with a question. What I would say is be as specific as you can be. You can also tell ChatGPT how to give you an answer. What role should it take? I'll give you an example, right? So I'm going to ask it now, explain what AI is. I'm going to say, as if I am a 10-year-old. So I'm giving it a bit of a parameter here. I want it to explain what AI is to me, but explain it simply. Okay, so as if I'm a 10-year-old. Let's see what comes back. Okay, so it's explaining to me like I'm a 10-year-old. Imagine your brain is like a super duper smart puzzle solver. Okay, when you see a new puzzle, you figure it out, etc. I'll leave it for you to have a look at that. And please, after this session, have a go yourself. You've got to get used to what it sort of gives you. And if you want to change it, that's too simple for me. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to say, now explain it to me as if I am a college professor or a college. Let's try college. Remember, the output's only as good as the input. So let's try again. And you'll find that now your ears might start to bleed because it's going into a little bit more detail, a little bit more academic detail. Okay, it's going into the jargon, giving a lot more detail. Too much for me. So I'm going to say, do you know what? I'm going to go back to the drawing board and say, explain it like I'm a 5-year-old, because the 10-year-old was too difficult for me. And it's going back and it's regenerating and it's doing again. Look, it's really super simple now. Your robot friend can learn new things. So look, it's adapted to what I've asked it. And this is just to show you what it can do. Okay, you can tell it to give you answers in certain styles. Explain it. Like Shakespeare. Hark, good gentlefolk. There we go. So it's changed its language. Look, this is a quick way of doing it, just to show you. You can ask it a question and see what you get back. The key here is you've got to be really specific. So tell it what you want, the style you want it in, give it parameters. You can see down the left-hand side, these are all the chats I've had with ChatGPT over the past few weeks. I've used it. What have I used it for? I was doing training for one company and they gave me some learner work as an example. I went, well, I can't use this. So what I did, I put it into ChatGPT and asked it to reword it for me, and it came up with a completely different version. It can summarize documents for you, but it can also give you ideas. And look, you know, it might not be accurate all the time, but it can give you ideas. So let me do something else. Let's have a think about, so for today's session, okay, if I wanted to plan today's session, and I did, I asked, I'm going to do a new chat, okay? So go to a new chat at the top, and I'm going to say, give me 3 smart objectives to teach teachers about using AI. So I've given it parameters. Give me 3 smart objectives to teach teachers about using AI in a 20-minute presentation. Let's see what comes back. What I'm liking about this, I teach, some of you on the call have been with me when I've taught you how to write smart objectives. Look, you have to go in, you have to check it, and you have to, you know, tweak it. I'm going to say make this shorter because it's a bit long for me. Shorter. So look, this is just one way of using ChatGPT. I'm going to use something else now. A lot of you may have already heard of Canva. It's, as I say, it's a free graphic design tool used for lots of things, making different documents, presentations. As I've said, I'm only going to show you free tools, okay? So I'm just going to make a presentation. I will get to, I can see that there's some comments coming in. I will get to those after I've done this. So making a presentation, and usually you start from scratch. Can somebody give me a topic of what they would like me to do a presentation on? And I will show you how Canva will use AI to do that. So if you want to unmute and just tell me something or put it in the chat, just give me a topic. Okay, if I knew what that was, Pauline, definitely. Well-being indices, wow. Showing my lack of knowledge there. A panda surfing on the rings of Saturn. Okay. I'll tell you what I'll do, Sarah. The first thing I'm going to do is do something on Canva that is called text to image. It uses AI to give you an image, anything you want. So I'm going to say, right, a panda surfing on the rings of Saturn. You might think that's weird, but thank you, Sarah, for that. Because I was going to say panda riding a bicycle, but I prefer yours. Now you can also change the style. So we've got filmic, watercolor. Let's go for, let's try anime, right? And we'll just, yeah, panda surfing on the style, create my image. Let's see what comes up. Yeah, so Sarah, this is text to image, but I'm going to also show you how to do a complete presentation. So there we go. There's a panda surfing on the rings of Saturn. Who would have thought it? Let's use that. Okay. It's fun, but you know what? It saves you time. So there's my panda. So that's called text to image in Canva. It's free. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back. Sorry, let's just go back to design. You'll see here at the top, magic design. Okay, so I need to tell it what presentation I want. So what did we have in the chat? Have we got any more ideas? French holidays. Let's do that. Okay, an introduction to holidays in France. Hopefully, cross our fingers. An introduction to holidays in France. Let's see what comes back. I think my computer is a little bit slow at the moment because we've got so many people on the call, but let's see what happens. Oh, I can see the Eiffel Tower. And at this point, you can change different styles, choose a template that it gives you. Okay, so let's choose this one. Bienvenue en France, an introduction to holidays in France. I'm going to create this one, okay, just for time purposes. Now, let's have a look. So we've got why France is the top tourist destination. Look, it's giving you content as well and a structure. So it's somewhere to start. I'm not saying it's perfect. Best time to visit France, look at that. Popular tourist attractions, Palace of Versailles, Mont Saint-Michel, the Eiffel Tower, French cuisine. You know what? If you were starting from scratch and you don't know where to start, this is a great way to start. Remember the 80-20 rule, because you might want to change the images, you might want to change the text, you might want to put other things in there. It's a good place to start, isn't it? 80-20, remember that. So time is against us. There's Canva, but I really want to get to Magic School. magicschool.ai. So far we've looked at a chat bot, which is general for everybody to use. We've used Canva, okay, which is mainly around images and content. Now we're going to look at an app that it's using AI, but for us, for teachers, for trainers. It's one of the better ones I've seen, okay, and there's a lot out there, and I'll give you some links later, but this one has got about 40 different tools that you can use. Let's have a look. YouTube video question generator. So you can put in a YouTube video and it will give you questions to ask on the content. Yes. Student work feedback tool. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna use this as an example. Now, I've done this already. I've prepared this, okay? I've used one of the criteria from one of the assignments we give out on assessment. So it's explain the function of assessment in learning and development. Now I've given it then, I've typed in focus of feedback rubric categories. You've got to give it a guide on what it's marking against. So I've said, what is the purpose of assessment? Must include the purpose of initial, formative and summative types of assessment. Now what I'm going to do is just copy in somebody's answer. We'll see what it comes up with. Generate. Remember, output is only as good as the input, so you've got to be specific. And you have to give it something to go off. What's it marking against? But it's a good place to start, don't you think? Areas of strength, clearly understands the purpose of assessment. Areas for growth, the student could provide more specific examples. It has picked up on a few typos. It is in there, upon instead of upon. So look, it's a place to start. I'm not saying it's taken over from us, but maybe if you we're all busy, you may want to start with that and then have a really good look. You can also ask it to summarize it, shorten it, etc. Let's go back to the rest of the tools. Lesson plan generator, I've used that, it does work. Teacher joke generator, don't need that. This is a good one, text leveler tool. So if you've got maybe a level 3 text, okay, and you want to make it more suitable for maybe level 1 students, you can enter that in there, tell it to do level 1 view, and it will rewrite it for you. So look, we don't have time to go through every single one of these today, but I'll just show you, I'll show you the YouTube question generator as a quick assessment tool. Okay, so I'm going to go, I've researched on YouTube a TED talk about AI. I'm going to copy that URL. Ooh, to that video, let's stop that there. I'm going to copy it into the YouTube generator. I've asked it to give me 3 questions, multiple choice, on the content of that video. The 20-minute video is a talk about AI. And there we go. We've got some video comprehension questions. Of course, you're going to check them to make sure they're accurate. But if you're looking for something as a quick assessment tool, it's got many different options. But guys, I know I've run, Rachel, have I run over time slightly? Yeah, so she's winding me up. I hope I've sort of opened your eyes to what it can do for us. This is scratching the surface. In fact, it's scratching the scratch of the surface. It's huge. It's with us to stay. So let's embrace it. Let's be safe with it. Let's check safety policies, etc. Let's not give it personal information just yet. But there are many, many tools. I will give you links after today's session to help you. I will be doing bigger sessions on this in the future to sort of see how we can use it for our benefit. Without further ado, I'll go back to Rachel, who's been winding me up.
Thank you, Ros. Well, personally, it is mind-blowing. From when I started using ChatGPT, really, I started getting my mind blown. You can ask it.
I've got such a headache just from talking about it because it's mind-boggling, and yeah, it could be dangerous. We have to be aware of that.
And yeah, because as teachers, if we're aware of it, it's not long, obviously, before
it's not going away.
Get aware of it and use it to type up there. And in fact, we had somebody this week who was convinced that their work was plagiarized but couldn't find it in any of the plagiarism checkers. So what we recommended to do is to say, oh, I liked your answer about that, and then verbally ask them a question to check their understanding.
Yeah.
So if they have just copied and pasted from somewhere else, you can always go back and ask them a question. Oh, so this is what you said. Can you explain that to me? You know, if you just want to check that they do have the knowledge and it's not just copied from somewhere else.
I mean, if you use one of those tools, copy leaks, etc., it will tell you, yeah, this is most likely AI generated, and then you can sort of go in and investigate and ask, have a discussion. Good place to start.
Thank you, Roz. And with no further ado, because we've got now
Sorry.
Anne. That's okay. Like you say, it could go on for hours, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Now over to Anne Reardon James, who's our learning advisor, who's going to talk a little bit around UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning Principles. I won't say any more because I'll probably give it away.
Thanks both. I'm sharing my screen, hopefully you can see it. It is totally mind-blowing, isn't it? The AI is just so much you can do. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible. I think at the moment it's just like playing with it a little bit and just trying things out. You can't break it, can you, after all? You know?
Can't break it.
Can't break it. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little short session on just a bit of introduction and just an overview if you haven't heard of UDL, sometimes it's called Universal Design for Learning. I know some of you in the class have heard me banging on about it in the past before, so I'm still trying to get my head around it a little bit, but it's thinking about moving away a little bit from kind of learning styles, which was always the traditional old-fashioned way of looking at how people learn, and think about how we can be more inclusive over time, really. So if you think about, I'm just going to move the picture of some there. What learning styles are, I'm not going to kind of go on too much about that because I think everyone's probably pretty familiar with things like VARC, visual, auditory, read, write, kinesthetic, and all the kind of learning styles. And this has been around since, I suppose, the 1980s, 1990s, this theory that you kind of are a type of person, you're a type of person, a type of learner, and the way that you learn best. And it's a nice, neat theory to think, okay, well, if you learn a certain way and then you're taught in a certain way, then logically, then it should go in more, shouldn't it? It should be more easy to understand if it's matching your style. So there was this thought, especially around the 1990s, 1980s, that individuals think and learn best in different ways, and they've got certain preferences for doing this learning and understanding information. And yeah, some of these are popular learning styles theories, and we've taught these as well over in Panda and every kind of teaching course in PGC. Whatever you do is always kind of covers these things. And you probably, like I say, you've probably mostly heard of Fleming, the VARC inventory, and there's different ones like any of them. But I keep thinking of the pop group, the folk group, every time I hear it. So I think it's quite similar. Gardner's Intelligences, Myers-Briggs. So they're quite similar in the way that they're all kind of, you usually have a questionnaire, some kind of quiz tool, you fill it out, something online, there's lots of free ones you can do, or a paper one, and then it gives you kind of results, and you think, okay, so I'm a kind of kinesthetic learner, so I learn best by being active, doing things, so ideally that's the way that I should learn, that's what I should be taught. It even got a bit extreme, I think, in some cases. I heard of some schools in America, I've had 20 years ago, having badges. The learners have badges on them saying, okay, I'm a kinesthetic learner. It got a bit too narrow, a bit too focused. So yeah, thinking about this then. So I don't want to kind of, I'm sure there's a lot of people here who maybe kind of like learning styles and kind of like the theory then. I don't know if you want to just quickly kind of shout out or just put in the chat any kind of models that you maybe do like, or you can see some kind of sense in them, or just ones maybe that you don't like so much. You're thinking, I don't really get this, or any issues or problems that you might have experienced when you're doing them yourself, because I'm sure most people here have had a go at doing a quiz. I can see someone's put something in the chat. Okay. So I'll give you just a minute to do that. If I do the kind of strengths first, does anyone like learning styles? I don't want to be kind of too presumptuous here. Do anyone kind of use them, or I know we still give them out on our questionnaires. Any positive comments people have got about them? You can just shout it out and put it in the chat.
By the time I've written it in the chat, you probably would have moved on. I was just going to say that they're good as a guide, but I completely agree with you that we can learn things in different ways, different things in different ways, and you just got to listen to the individual learner as to how they learn what you're trying to teach them, basically, haven't you?
Absolutely, totally agree with you. Yes, I completely agree with you. I don't think anyone's that kind of even in these questionnaires is a pure style, are they? We've always got a bit of a mixture. Depends on the time of day, depends on your mood, depends on how you're feeling, depends on what you're doing. sometimes some things come more naturally to us than other things, depending on the topic and what prior knowledge is already of that subject. So Jane likes, okay, so about the topic. So Pauline likes bark. Okay, yeah. So what do you like about bark then, Pauline? You don't mind unmuting? There's no right or wrong with these things. I'll come back to Pauline. Jane, so you think Gardner's validating? Okay, Jane, any comments about that? What do you like about Gardner?
Well, I just think the whole fact that you can be smart in different areas is not just traditionally English or maths, or, you know, you can be musically smart or socially smart. I think that's very validating for students.
That's a really good point. So I was thinking about intelligence not being this narrow focus of just being like academic or almost in a way, but there are all these different types of thinking about what it is, a more holistic approach to it really, and you've got all these different skills, like you say, like verbal, musical, interpersonal relationship skills, all those kind of soft skills they call them, like empathy.
Yeah. And
Thanks,
I was going to say, if it's okay, last night with a student, he was saying he's no good at attention, but actually it was a chance to teach him, or to offer him some skills so that he could develop that area. And then he said how good he is with memory. It was a chance to celebrate that. So knowing the profile or what the student thinks is helpful as well, I think, in the right way, but not just to label them.
That's the key point, I think, isn't it, Jane? Absolutely. It's this labeling, isn't it? It's categorization that sometimes can follow from this. Absolutely. Totally agree with you. Thanks, Leah. I fear sometimes that makes only learn. I think they're only fit in one box. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Rosalind says bark gives a good outline, but it can depend on the subject. Yeah. Pauline, because you can employ a variety of styles into a lesson to hopefully grab someone's attention. Yes, that's a good point, Pauline. So I suppose the idea is that, well, to be honest, you're never going to have a class, are you, or a session where you just got one type of learner anyway. You're always going to have a mixture of people in the class, all different personalities, different backgrounds, different levels. So I suppose it just acts as a bit of a reminder to think, okay, I'm not going to present this information in one way. I'm going to use different things. I'm going to do a bit of speaking, I'm going to do a bit of listening, I'm going to do a bit of maybe video, going to do a bit of moving around, doing stuff. So yeah, there is that. Fantastic. Okay, thanks, folks. So it's thinking about, kind of the strength, I suppose, of these approaches. They're very entrenched in teaching learning courses over time. So the kind of the pros and the cons of them, really. So nothing's perfect, is it? Everything has always got kind of strengths and limitations, and it's not using these things religiously, but just thinking about what their strengths are, maybe what the limitations are as well. Thanks for your contributions, folks. Right then, so if I move to the next slide. Okay, so in the academic literature, there's a lot of debate now and a lot of critique of kind of these learning styles models. A lot of people are saying there's not much evidence for this, and when study how people study the brain, it's become a bit of a neuromyth that, that information is processed in different types in different parts of the brain according to what you supposed learning style that you are. The instruments that you use, the quizzes, aren't, again, pinch of salt, they can become unreliable. It depends. I'm sure you've experienced this yourself when you're filling in a quiz and you've got multiple choice and there's 4 choices and you're thinking, I don't fit any of these. What can I, what can I do? And it might depend on the time of day, again, like I said, or how you're feeling. So the validity of the instruments that use them, that are a bit, not so great. And there's just a lot of research evidence that maybe it's just what we thought, actually, and it's a bit more complicated than this. It's a nice neat theory to think of people like this, but it's not so straightforward. We're all complex human beings, aren't we, at the end of the day, and will change over time. So an alternative to learning styles theories is UDL. So this is becoming kind of increasingly more popular now, universal design for learning. Now, one big I'll put this first up there. So so I've got a little slider quiz just to say. So there's a QR code on there, so you can either use your camera or you can go to slido.com and put in 9873429. Just want to see what kind of knowledge level I've got. I know some of you have heard me banging about it in my classes before. Let's give a minute to do that. There we go. Okay, some people know absolutely nothing about it, heard of it. Okay. And again, it's just a little introduction, just touching upon it today because it's just a short little session, just to tickle your taste buds a little bit. Okay, so most people, okay, right. So I say maybe generally a lot of people haven't heard of it, don't know much about it at all.
There's definitely 2 people in the audience that have heard of it because I do cover it on the award in education and training now. So Joe and Pete, I'm looking at you. You should have heard of it.
Maybe they're the 17% then. Okay, still doing much less settle. I think it's probably all right then. So some people know, a lot of people don't know. Okay, it's just interesting to know. Right, yeah, it's still quite a new theory, I suppose, in a way that they're still, yeah, it's still getting the message out there is definitely important. Right, yeah, 20% have heard it, lovely stuff. Right then, so one thing to think about with this is a bit of a trap you can fall into easily. When it says universal design for learning in the title, that does not mean that you treat all learners the same. It's the same as when you think about equality and diversity with inclusivity. You don't treat everyone the same, do you? You adapt your training, you adapt your assessment, you adapt your learning depending on individuals' preferences, their personalities, any learning differences they've got. So it doesn't mean everyone has the same thing. But the thinking is also that if some things are really good for some people, they're good for everybody. So if you think of it like architectural terms in a building, if you've got like on a ground floor and you've got a slope going in instead of steps, a lot of steps, and you've got like a ramp, that's not just good for people maybe who are in a wheelchair or struggle to get upstairs. That's probably maybe good for everybody. It might be a lot easier for people to go up the ramp or the slope rather than going up the steps. So that's the kind of thinking behind it. It's very much based on architectural principles and design of buildings. So the 3 principles of this, and again, this is just a really quick overview, and we'll send you some links so we can do a bit more reading, and there's some YouTube videos that explain this in more detail. But the thinking behind it is this, even this is from the 1990s. I don't know where the time goes. So this is from CAS. So this is a Center for Applied Special Technology in American. So it's a kind of American theory, and it's more based on neuroscience research. And it's thinking about these three key principles, which is not easy to say. So you've got engagement, representation, and then action and expression. So the thinking is, with any learning, anything you're taking in, any way that you're kind of representing or offering that learning or demonstrating that learning, and any assessments that you're doing, like Q&A, observation, discussions, professional discussions, that you're always thinking about, okay, how do I engage learners in the first place? So the idea is you're offering options and you're stimulating enthusiasm and motivation to be able to do this learning in the first place. It's probably things you're already doing and not really thinking about it, I suppose, consciously, I would imagine. So whenever you're always offering options to learners, aren't you? So you might have learners, for example, who maybe have dyslexia and they find writing difficult. So you'll think, okay, maybe we'll do this as professional discussions instead if people find it easy to speak, that kind of example. So with all these different methods, it's always thinking of how can I make the choices wider, and how can I include the learners more in the decisions and empower people and motivate people to be part of that as well. So not just telling people what to do, you're involving them in the process. Building rapport is important to learning. Yeah, absolutely, Rachel, completely. If you haven't got that in the first place, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Relationships and rapport building right from the off. It's so important. So if you're hooking people at the beginning, you're stimulating them, stimulating interest, you're on a winner. that's the main thing, right from the start. And then there's a similar kind of process then and principles for the other 2 as well. So when you think about, so engagement is the start of it, how you're getting people in, drawing people in, and then representation. So that's how you're giving information over to people to help them with their learning. So you offer different methods. It might be a video, it might be something to read, it might be a spoken thing, it's something you act out. So again, it's all about choices and different methods. And then again, with action expression, again, guess what? It's offering options again. So it's the same kind of principles for each of these 3 things, so that everyone can create, learn, and share. It's all about the processes that we teach always in our courses as well. It's always about removing any potential barriers or any potential for discrimination. So quickly then, I'll just go on to the next slide. So thinking about each of those ones. So with a why of learning, it's kind of sometimes useful to think about, it sounds a bit kind of technical, doesn't it, academic with some of these terms. But if you think about engagement being kind of the why of it, so you're recruiting interest, move on a bit, to stimulate learning and to make it purposeful. So some examples might be, and we'll send out this website link as well, so CAST, they've got loads of good examples in there about how you can do this and some YouTube videos to explain it, some quick short ones. So some suggestions here are, about making things interactive, discussions, real world scenarios to recruit interest. So just quickly then, does anyone want to kind of shout out or put in the chat any ways that they kind of, in their lives and their work in practice, kind of do some of these things? What kind of things do you do to kind of hook in your learners and get them interested and motivated right from the start? Anyone be brave and share a method or a topic that they do? Jamie Fair's got metaphors. Oh, tell me more now, Jamie. Metaphors?
Easier speakers as opposed to typing all that out. I just think there's a lot of magic to be had from metaphors. So giving people stories just to try and get the hook. You know, it'd be simple things like if I want to talk about, let's say it's a subject on history or something like that, where we're talking about a significant figure that we want to learn about. Maybe just tell a story about, a little bit more about, what their journey was, who they were as a person. But what I find with metaphors is as you're storytelling, you can see people going into their own worlds. And as they do that, they're painting a visual picture of what it is they're about to learn before you go into the detail and, in the black and white on the pages, the facts about that situation. So I just love metaphor as a hook. I love it as to get engagement, because especially young kids, my kid, I look at my 4-year-old now, I drop metaphors all the time just to see her eyes move up, and I can see her deep in thought, and I think, that's brilliant. She's hooked now. And what happens 5 minutes later? She comes running, Daddy, what do you mean about this? And then she's curious. Then she's asking me questions like, tell me more, Daddy. What do you mean by that? And I think that spans regardless of the age band. We all love a metaphor. We all love our own way of visualizing a certain thing, and I think it's key. I love it. Love metaphor. There you go.
Thanks, Jamie. I completely agree. And it's very natural to us as humans, isn't it, to tell stories? That's how we kind of process things. And used to do that years ago around the campfire, around a fire. We'd be telling people stories orally. And I completely agree. I love it. Ross has put in, linking content to their interests. Yeah, absolutely. So it's getting to know your learner, isn't it? And what motivates them, and making it relevant is a key thing, especially work-based learning. Roswell says about, using units that are relevant to the learner's life. Absolutely. Same kind of, Rian's got, give the learners choices as to how and where they learn at the very start. Yes. Thanks, Rian. So it's evolving in the process, isn't it? It's not something that's being done to people, but you're giving them options and hooking them in, making them interested. Fantastic. Okay. So similarly then, for the second point, thinking about the what of it then. So we've gone from the why, now we're looking at the what of it, so the representation of it. So some examples again are kind of how you might give over that learning, that teaching, how you delivering that information, and making it more kind of, I suppose, learner-led as well. So it's not so much teacher talk, and it's not so much led by the assessor or the teacher or the trainer. So anyone want to kind of share any examples briefly about kind of content that it might have provided in different formats? Especially think about how you can link this to AI as well. That's quite interesting how that's going to transform, definitely.
Not to go on, but I found a lot of tools that link to UDL, so I will put those on the Padlet after as well, because there's just lots. There's like text to audio tools, etc.
Yeah, so we'll take the legwork out of doing that yourself, rather than like before. It used to be like you have a video, you'd have to first of all, it was that in the past. I've had a video and audio, and I've had to type up the transcript, and it's taken ages. But like you say, if AI can do it, that's going to save a lot of time. So that you're presenting that information, with subtitles on it, different ways, different voices, even, so it's making more personalised, isn't it? And not these robotic voices that was used at the start. Absolutely. So text, audio, video, and it's that thinking again about what's good for some people is good for everybody. So you've got learners maybe who are ESOL learners, so their English isn't so great, maybe, you know, in the class. If you're presenting that information in different ways, it's better for everybody. Okay, like it. Right then. Okay, I'll just move forward, I think, because I know we're a bit short on time. So similarly, not just how you kind of present that information then, but the last one, the how of it. So we've got why, the what, and now the how of doing this thing. So the action and expression. So how you demonstrating this knowledge, how you getting learners to demonstrate that they understand what you've been talking about, or the topic you've been discussing, or their competencies in the workplace, for example. So has anyone got any kind of cool methods or any kind of, basic kind of things that they rely on maybe to kind of demonstrate understanding through different ways that they would like to share? I guess, again, you could probably do this through metaphors, I suppose, Jamie, maybe?
You could, yeah. It's just kind of thrown me back to like engineering training, though. I think often what I used to do is get people to use tools prior to telling them all about it, because I was interested in how they'd hold them, how they'd look at them, you know, how they. It's that kinesthetic approach, really. When you're talking about an engineering kind of education platform, I want to see not that they know all the details about what the tool's made of and who made it and what size it is. It's actually how do they hold it? So I kind of reversed the academic explanation of what everything did and just put them in a workshop and just let them loose for a bit, and safely, obviously. But it's just seeing that kind of reverse method and see what people do with things, and then just go from there. And that's important. But demonstrating understanding for me, on the flip side of that, is that just hearing it in their words. I couldn't be doing with memory tests all the time. I love how people articulate their journey with learning. And often we always think that we've got the language right, and sometimes they can come up with something brilliant. So I think in that sense, their own version of learning is key. Mm-hmm. What did they get from it? Mm-hmm. Instead of telling me what I told you, I'm not interested in that.
I love it. So it's them giving them empowering people to kind of put in their own words, use their own voice, demonstrate it in a way that they feel best and comfortable doing that, and be much more hands-on and offering those choices. Absolutely. I can't quite see the comments in the chat for some reason. Can Roz or Rachel just read out what's been put in the chat?
It's actually just me and Rachel that have put comments in the chat. I said, because I do this a lot, where I'll get learners to research a topic and then present it back, something visual like in Canva. And now we know they can use AI. Maybe I won't do that anymore, but etc. Just to sort of present it back using their strengths.
Yeah, exactly. So it's using their strengths. So you're not kind of labeling people and categorizing people into a certain box and saying this is what type you are. But you're building on their strengths, scaffolding. You're building from what they know, what they feel comfortable in doing. Yes, absolutely. And the hope then is over time that people feel more confident then to kind of try different things out, to be experimental. That's what you're aiming for.
There we go. And Rian's just said being open about how you assess within the parameters of your awarding body, of course. But sort of changing that, because Rachel also said, giving options for assessment, which is sort of along the same lines as Rian there, written or discussion.
Absolutely. And I think going forward, there'll be probably the way that AI is going, there'll be a minefield of different ways. It'll be mind-blowing the different ways that you can kind of represent that knowledge. Probably maybe we might move away over time, possibly from a kind of assignments, and there'll be so many different ways you can kind of represent and demonstrate the knowledge that you have. There'll be interesting times that we live in, exciting times, I think. Right then, so any kind of final questions about anything that I've said? I know it's just been a kind of very quick kind of bit of an overview, but just thinking about, there's learning styles that they got their use, sitting with a large pinch of salt about how reliable they are, and just think about making things, how you can make things more inclusive through offering different options, and always thinking about the why, what, and the how all the time, those kind of open questions.
Thank you, Anne, for that. For me, and all the research I've done around, I've done a lot of research around neurodiversity and different ways of teaching different neurodiverse learners, and it just comes back to good teaching practice, doesn't it? Using a range of methods for teaching, using a range of methods for assessment. And so it's quite commonsensical in a way. It's like, it seems there's going to be this big mythical thing, but actually it's just good teaching practice. So that's really great. Thank you, Anne, for demystifying UDL, which sounded very scary at the start. Next, we're over to Jamie, who's going to talk a little bit about stress management and well-being. So Jamie, over to you.
Okay, can everyone see my screen and hear me okay? Awesome. Well, 20 minutes, right, I'll do my very best. I'm going to set a timer so I don't get the wind up. Not ready for that, not today. Some really interesting conversations we've had so far, and all very relative to what I'm going to talk about in some respects, because look at how understanding your learners a bit better through a system that doesn't just label your students or make you think like a certain way. So UDL is very important there. I think it's all about being flexible and adaptable. And I think that's what builds resilience, and something we're going to talk about when we talk about stress awareness. AI, that's a big stress reliever, isn't it? Especially as a business owner. My goodness, I'm looking at all of the possible kind of ways that I can reduce the stress or strains and challenges of business. But I'm also thinking about the personal, advantages of that as well. How we can start to use technology to reduce those kind of time-consuming, distressful kind of thoughts that we might have ruminating in our minds. Great example of how I've just recently used AI. Designed me a 12-month training program for a novice for an Ironman, and build in a nutrition program for a busy man with young children. So wow, the information I got back from that, epic. Also, I'm off to West Wales for a holiday. Give me an itinerary of all the best places to go, and it did. Things like that, honestly, just completely took everything off my mind just for a moment. And I think that's how we can use technology for the better. Things I'm going to talk about as we move through on this stress awareness kind of workshop. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. Excuse me. And I want to give you as much as possible because I'm really passionate about this subject. Why? Because mental health conditions aside, so people with diagnosed mental health conditions, mental health problems, illnesses, disorders, separate that and just think from a perspective of how can stress lead us towards those kind of avenues. And it does. I do believe that distress, or being in a distressful state or feeling overwhelmed, is a foundation for many, if not all, mental health conditions. It's a major problem. It's something we don't address. It's something we don't understand properly. The impact of it is both, psychological and physical, and detrimental in all facets of our life. So something to think about there. There are things we can do about it, and I often worry and think to myself, some of the things that I know about how to reduce distressful situations, thoughts, or how to build resilience through the challenges that life throw at us are so simple. They just need to become, habits that become unconsciously competent at doing, and all of a sudden we'll find that we become more resilient. People often sigh when I say breath work, and they're like, breathing, and I'm like, yes, and I'll tell you a little bit about the science behind it because it's important. All of this will lead to a better mindset, something I will finish off this talk with today. If there's anything you want to discuss with me today, jump in, interrupt me, challenge what I'm saying. I love that because it's not about me. It's not about these slides. You make this information come alive. So please, jump in at any point today. What I'm keen to understand is people's perception of stress. Stress is a very interesting thing. The roller coaster is a good analogy. I think I mentioned before how much I love a metaphor, analogies, because they're important. They make it real. How many people are watching this with their palms sweaty thinking, oh my God, turn it off. I hate roller coasters, they're awful. But at the same time, how many are thinking, I absolutely love a roller coaster. I can't wait for the next twist, turn, downhill. It's exciting, it's fun. It's one of those things that I really love. I mean, thinking about people who love a roller coaster, they always want to get to the front, right? You want the best seat. They want to feel that adrenaline and the excitement. And yet some people want to sit at the back, terrified, palms sweaty, can't wait for it to be over. In fact, may not even get on in some cases. You know, you've got to ask yourselves who sit where. Obviously, you know, what we're talking about here is for one person it's exciting, the other it's distressful. What's the difference between those that sit at the front and those that sit at the back? Perception. And it's the perception of control. How much control does the person at the front have, and how much control does the person at the back have? Neither has any more control than the other, but it's their perception of the situation. It's their understanding of it. That's what determines how they feel about that situation. When we think of that, we start to realize just how different we are. Just how our personality, our traits, our perception of the world is so very different. And I find this metaphor is a great way to be less judgmental of those that are seeming distressed in certain situations that you might not find distressful at all. I think it's a great, you know, kind of barrier breaker for understanding that we are all different, and that understanding that just can give us that little bit more empathy. I think it's a communication key as well, but I think it also gives us a little understanding of each other. The word stress itself, I have a major problem with. And I'll tell you why, because, you know, I've got to blame people like the health and safety executive. You've got a lot to answer for there in this world. I think we've leaned very, very far one way to, you know, wrapping everybody in bubble wrap. And also the language we use around certain things can muddy the water a little bit about what people actually mean when they say, I'm so stressed. Where's the word stress come from? It's an engineering term for metal breaking or materials breaking. It's an engineering term. That's where it came from. I think of bridges being under stress. If they weren't under stress, they'd fall down. Aircraft flying in the sky. If there wasn't stress in the airframe, it wouldn't fly. If we didn't have stress in our lives, or some of it, we wouldn't achieve that goal. We wouldn't get a gold medal at the Olympics. How many of you leave things to the very last minute because you work better under pressure? I know there's a few of you. Yeah, absolutely. You know, that kind of self-induced pressure of leaving things to the last minute, sometimes that's when we can produce our best work. We understand that about ourselves, and that's an interesting thing to consider. So the word, I think if we used it more appropriately, people would understand where someone is coming from better. One of the things I do, if I go into an office block in Cardiff City to do a wellbeing workshop for an organization, often people will say to me, I'm really stressed. And I will say, that's great, getting stuff done, well done, bravo you, doff my cap, carry on. And they look at me like I've stolen the children's Christmas presents. You what? And I say, well, what I'm getting at with that point, and it's not me trying to be rude, it's literally just saying you need to be more specific about what it is you're saying. The health and safety executive, when they use that word, they say stress is the adverse impact to excessive workload. Okay, so for me, the word stress is not important in that case. The word distress is now what we're talking about, when somebody's in a distressful state. I'm going to introduce you to another word that many of you may not have heard of. And if you have, brilliant. But most of the people I teach or talk to never heard of the word eustress. Eustress is positive stress. That's how we get things done. I want you from this day forward to start thinking about, am I stressed in the sense of, am I in a distressful state, or am I actually in a eustress state, which means this is applied pressure that's actually making me perform and do well. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Distress and eustress. If we use the words more appropriately, guess what? We can start being more specific. We may get the support we want, and we may start reflecting on whether or not we're in a good place where I'm producing work, or I just need a break because I've got too much on, or I need to share some of my workload. So there's a lot going on when we think about these words. I often get the term burnout. If anybody tells me when I go into an office block that they're burnt out, I correct them immediately. Why? Because if they are burnt out, they wouldn't have got out of bed that morning. Burnout is very serious. We need to be more appropriate with the use of that word. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged distress. When that happens, people stop running these automatic programs of taking pride in ourselves, getting our hygiene sorted, getting all those jobs done around the house. All of those are no longer a priority for us. So burnout is serious. And we need to focus on using the right terminology when we talk to each other. We'll get the right and more appropriate support. I want you to think about us as animals just for a moment. We often forget that we are animals. We used to sleep on cave floors, for goodness sake, and run around with spears and get chased by tigers. What I'm going to just to briefly explain to you is how our stress responses work naturally. For example, imagine caveman Jamie, right? Saber-tooth tiger jumps out at me, my fight or flight response kicks in. Adrenaline spikes, I get all the energy to my muscles so I can fight or flight. Let's say I choose to fight the tiger, we have a battle. Cortisol is then released in the body alongside this fight or flight response as a stress hormone. What the job of that stress hormone is to shut down other systems in my body, in particular our immune system, also digestive system, hence the butterflies in the stomach. It'll also shut down reproductive systems and other systems in the body that aren't a priority at that time, just so I've got enough energy to survive and fight. Let's say I beat the tiger, chuck it over my shoulder, take it back to camp, throw it down. Everyone's happy, one, that I've survived, and two, that I put food on the table. Nice work. So I get these good hormones now. I get something called DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, starts to be released in my body, bit of dopamine, serotonin, all the good stuff that actually puts me back into balance. This cycle may happen 2 or 3 days, which is brilliant. However, today, in modern day society, that saber-toothed tiger is an email from somebody I don't like, or it's watching the news, it's social media, it's this negativity that I may attach to, someone cutting me up in traffic. Our body chemically does not know the difference between those things and a saber-toothed tiger. And that can be really detrimental to us, to our physiology and to our mindset. Let me just touch on a concept for you just for a moment, because there are two systems in our body, our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I call them grow or protect, in a sense, right? So when our cells are in protect mode, which is this fight or flight response, our sympathetic nervous system is activated. It's worth mentioning here as well that cortisol is not all bad. We need it. It's got functions. It's responsible for getting us up in the morning, metabolism, etc. So it's not all bad. It's just the quantity and duration. What we can do, and I'll give you some tips in a moment, is we can through thinking, through breathing, through understanding the situation, through making things rational, we can flick that switch between grow and protect from our sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous systems. I'm going to give you some tools on how we can do that in a moment. First, let's just look at how we handle stress. This is a big deal. Often, as teachers, you know, there's like a 90-minute window, just like professional sports and all the other sports. They know that a 90-minute window is where people's main attention can go, and that includes us as well. When we're working, when we're doing a project, if we go beyond that time, we can start to get a little bit irritated, maybe. We start thinking of other things, we start drifting off, our focus is lost. What might happen if we go way beyond that 90-minute window is we might start feeling distressed. We might start thinking we can't cope. And it's little things. There's a really good analogy I use of just kind of just thinking about all of the things that I've got to do for the rest of today. You know, that could come up me right now as I'm talking to you and I'm thinking, I've got that report to write, I've got the finances to do, I've got another meeting to do. And I might get overwhelmed and start thinking, oh, I can't cope anymore. And that happens to any of us at any time. All I ask is with this back pocket tool is just sit. How long have you been doing a certain something? If you find yourself going to that top left box and you're feeling a bit irritated, a bit distressed, a bit overwhelmed, we need to start thinking how we get back to the right hand side of this this diagram. So sleep mindfulness exercise. What I mean is don't do 90-minute work and have an 8-hour sleep. I know we'd all love that, but that's not what it's about. It's about what is your sleep patterns. I could talk about sleep all day. All I'd say is think about your sleep hygiene. What are you doing just before bed? make the house nice and dark, just like outside does. We often forget that we need to move in tune with the lights. Start thinking about how much blue light you're staring at before you sleep. Start thinking that exercise is not just going to the gym and seeing how strong you can get and lifting weights and doing all the good stuff. It can just mean a 10-minute walk after you've had your dinner. Just get those endorphins going, a bit of serotonin, all the good stuff. Get outside and do some exercise. What I would suggest is, you know, maintaining, flipping between the top right and bottom right as much as possible. And for me, often, if I'm, especially after my masters, I figured this out really quickly, that I would spend 6-7 hours straight at the computer, not realizing how long I'd been there. You know, I got into a pattern where I was just looking outside, and I've got a great view of a mountain out here, and I often extend my vision and just have 5 minutes just thinking about nothing if I can. We often forget that, and that's all it can take just to get that reset. I invite you to do that. Now, how do we flick that switch between grow and protect? Honestly, it's super simple. It's taking control of our breathing. It's the one thing that changes with our emotions. We get upset, our breathing changes. We get tired, our breathing changes. If we can take control of our breathing just a little bit, we can flick that switch between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. We can put ourselves back into repair mode. And it's that lack of repair that is the biggest problem. This is where cells in our body start breaking down because we're flooded with cortisol all day. This is where we start to get poorly. It's where we start to feel run down. It's where we feel like the distressed state is the only.
That would have been.
Say again, sorry? Oh, thought someone was talking there. So diaphragmatic breathing is one thing you can think of. It's deep breathing through the nose. I invite you to do this. One long, deep breath through the nose. And what you'll find is as you breathe through the nose and you take a really deep breath, that it actually goes down quite a long way. Your lungs are huge. We often forget that. If we're in a distressed state, what you're likely to do is breathe through your mouth. When we breathe through our mouth, and you can try it, you only really use like the top half of your lungs. You don't really use all of your lungs. So a very controlled, deep breath through your nose, almost like you're trying to fill a balloon in your stomach, full of air. You're trying to make it pop. And then as you exhale, breathe out through your mouth, nice and slowly. If you do 2 or 3 of those, I guarantee that you will flip from the sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. Your body starts to produce DHEA, which, by the way, if you're producing that, you can't produce cortisol at the same time. So it's a win-win. Massages your lymph system by breathing so deep and depletes all the toxins from your blood. Why this isn't mainstream education for children is beyond me, but I guess no one can make any money from it, can they? Once you know it, you know it. So it's definitely something to think about, especially with learners. It's a good coping strategy. Benefits. We use this quite often. I've teamed up with a guy down in Taftswell, and there's some breathing exercises we do there called Oxygen Advantage. He's been working with Welsh Rugby, especially at national level recently. Some massive advantages in sport. I know it's this kind of breathing is used heavily by singers as well, just to keep composure, but improve core muscle stability. It's one of those things that are really good. Look, reduce your stress. That's the ultimate aim here. If you're feeling distressed, take control of your breathing. This will make a huge difference. There's something as well. I don't know if you've heard of a chap called Andrew Huberman. He talks about the physiological sigh. You take a deep breath through your nose, and then when you feel like your lungs are full, take one more, and you'll find there's a little quick, rapid exhale after. I often do that, and I get goosebumps on the back of my neck because I know what it's instantly done is calm me. We do this naturally. I'm inviting you to do it on purpose at those times where you feel a little distressed or overwhelmed. It will become, over time, the more you do this, an unconscious competence. This will make you more resilient and adaptable, and it'll make you start thinking rationally about situations instead of worrying about worrying, because that's often what we get into. So some other coping mechanisms for stress. I know we're close. Sleep, I've already mentioned. It's huge. It's huge. Can't tell you enough how important sleep is. Make the room cold. 14, 16 degrees. The body loves it. Remember, we used to sleep on the floor in caves. Our body gets it and it loves it. So 50 tug duvets, whacking the central heating on. I know autumn's coming. Just be conscious of what your body wants. Exercise doesn't have to be every day doing something for an hour. It can just be 10 minutes regularly every day. just having a walk, just getting some fresh air, getting outside in nature. Diet, nutrition, I could literally talk about this all day. You know when you've eaten something that has affected your mood. You know when you've eaten things that make you feel tired. You know when you've eaten things that make you feel good. So just choose that more. Choose the things that make you feel good. And I don't mean for those cheap dopamine hits that we can get from a McDonald's or a Greg's. I'm talking about that long-term, how your gut feels. You know, we know when we've eaten something that makes us feel healthy. So just pursue that more. Journaling. When we feel overwhelmed, our mind can run very fast. One thing I've found by putting pen to paper is my hand cannot keep up with my mind. So my mind has to slow down so I can write down what I'm thinking. I basically encourage myself to think more rationally. I've turned off my kind of monkey emotional brain, the limbic system. I've moved the blood to my neocortex, and I'm now thinking about these situations more rationally. When I put pen to paper, I've now got a list of things that are actionable, things I'm in control over. If we think back to that first slide, that's going to put me in a sense of, if I feel control, perception is good, this situation isn't overwhelming. I cannot recommend journaling enough. Positive journaling is fantastic as well, because you know when those things in life come along, and they do, it's not about looking at life through rose-tinted glasses like everything's always going to be perfect. Life will throw challenges, things at you did not expect. If you're writing a positive journal, if you keep a log of all the great things that happen, regardless of how small, it may be just, you know, just a little thing that you've had with one of your friends, or something, that comment that was said, put it in this journal, because when life does get hard and difficult, you can look back and know it's not always going to be that way. Because these little positive reminders are fantastic. Prime example, we've got a gratitude jar. If anything good happens at home, whatever it is, it could be, I don't know, my little one said her first words, best day ever, wrote down what it was, folded it up, put it in the jar. Every Christmas, we open the jar, tip them all out, and we all sit there and read them together. It reminds me of all the things that are so easily forgotten over the year. We remember the bad things so quickly. But let's remind ourselves of the good things, because then we'll realize life's not going to be bad forever when those bad things happen. How we think 100% affects how we feel. How we feel affects how we behave. Scientifically proven that our thoughts alone, separate from our environment, can trigger stress hormones. The continued release of stress hormones creates dis-ease or disease. This is why hospitals are full of cardiovascular problems, cancers, you know, respiratory problems, all of these things. I point down to this. So then, if that's the case, this means then our thoughts have the power to heal. Our thoughts can trigger our parasympathetic nervous system, and our bodies can be restored through repair hormones like DHEA. We can put ourselves back into balance. That switch can be made. You can be the alchemist of your own chemistry. You can manifest positive thoughts through certain activities. I invite you to think about what those activities are. What brings you joy? What makes you feel calm, happy, safe? Do more of that. Make a note of what those things are. Taking ownership of how we think, feel, and behave will ensure we're maximizing our potential and living the happiest life and a satisfying life that we can. Jim Rohn once said, all life strives towards a maximum of its potential, all except human beings. Why? Because we have the dignity of choice. Trees grow as high as they possibly can, they take root, and they grow to their potential, as many leaves as they can. But we repeat our patterns of behavior and expect different results. We don't have to repeat what we did last year, this year. There's another great quote, Alan Watts, you're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. Realize your potential, own your mind, and live a life that you're happy with. That's me. 23 minutes, apologies. I didn't even see that, so thank you. I'm sure you've got loads of questions, maybe even all the questions, but I just want you to be curious about you. The more you do for you, the better you are for everyone around you, and that's how we create a community that supports one another. It's been a pleasure. If there are no questions, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Much appreciated for that. And I can just share with you before we started, because I couldn't get my my slideshow to go on to the next slide using my arrows or the space bar. I did get in a little bit of a flap. And Roz and Anne both reminded me to do some breathing, and that's what I did before coming. We all did actually before starting this session, just to, I did get in a little bit of a flap with my thing, my presentation not moving on. So thank you for that. And other people have put in some great suggestions as well in the chat. So thank you all again for joining us today. Just a little bit about and thank you, Jamie. Sorry, I didn't say that. Thank you, Jamie, so much for that. Jamie, we use for our mental health and wellbeing training. So he does the one for assessors. We also do sessions for apprentices. So we've recently been out to a training provider in Newport, Cwmbran, and we've just done about 100 apprentices, I think, wellbeing training, which they loved. So yeah, if you have apprentices or youth learners as well, please get in touch with us. So what next? So there's a few things. Roz is going to send out a Padlet, or we will send out a Padlet after this, of all the presentations, the resources, everything from this session, including a link to a video of this session as well, which will go on our YouTube channel. If you want to book on any of our courses, there's a link on this page here to our events page. So there's the written link and also a QR code, and then you can join in there, book on any of our sessions that you fancy. If you want to sign up to our newsletter, which we try to send out about quarterly with what's coming up in that fortnight's coming quarter, we also share resources, good practice as part of our newsletter. If you could give us some feedback, that would be great. There's the QR code in there, which I'll come back to. So yeah, we'd just like to say a big thank you. And look, it's not moving again. Thank you for joining us today. Yes, I know it's not moving. I don't know what I need to do to make it move. There we are. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've got something out of it, and all these have been little tasters, and hopefully through the resources you can go on and do some more research of your own, look into each of these different areas in more depth, or come on another one of our courses. But yeah, it's been really nice to see you all, and we really appreciate you all coming along today. So thank you very much. And thank you sorry we ran over as well. Doesn't help when we've got 3 trainers who are passionate and love to talk about their subject. So
thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Roz, anything to add there? Thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much.
No, it's been really enjoyable, and thank you for participating and for putting stuff in the chat as well. It's really helped. We'll be sending out the links later.